Hi, welcome to today's Wednesday stamping tips. Have you got into the habit of stamping with black ink all the time and you just want to do something a little bit different? Over the years you end up with a pile of products and you're always looking for new ways to use them. So today we're going to explore some of those ways and how we can use them with stamping. So we've looked at just using coloured inks. We did that a few weeks ago. And one was this one where we used brown ink instead of brown, and this one where we used coloured inks on the one stamp instead of just black. So two ways just with stamping, and they were done with archivals. But today we're going to be using products. So some of the ways that we can use products. Now I've got a whole heap of things lined up here for us to try out, and I'll start with an easy one first, which is like ghosting. So it's just stamping with water. I've chosen a Grungy butterfly from Rubber Dance, and it's as simple as spritzing it with a bit of water. I like to hold it about, I don't know, 12 inches, and just fine mist, and then I'll take it down to the table. This is an inked up blended piece of card. I've used mustard seed, orange and crackling campfire distress inks. So I'm just going to stamp with water, and again just hold it down like we normally do and lift off, and hopefully this works. Let's see if it does. You can just see it. You can see the ink that's come off. It's lifted the ink off the card. So I'm going to dry that with a heat tool because that will make it pop that little bit more. Sorry about the noise. And I don't know if you can see it. Can you see the butterfly? Just there. It's a ghosting technique, so it's stamping with water. So that's one of the easiest things that we can do. Another thing that we can do is stamping with crayons. So for this one, I have my trusty containers of distressed crayons. So we might take out a nice brown, a blue, because brown and blue go together. What else will we use? Maybe a green. Will that go? Yeah, we'll give that a go. It doesn't really matter. You can pick any colours. I've chosen... oh, hang on. There's a stamp under there. This stamp. It's from Art Journey. So, again, it's as simple as just random areas with the green. The brown I thought would look nice on the pants. Screw that out. You know, I don't know whether you've ever tried stamping with crayons before, but it's got a beautiful effect. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful effect. So we'll go up, give them brown here too. All right. And a bit of blue. So I've got to try and find the areas that I haven't already got some crayons. All right, nearly there. I'll just pop some on the legs as well. That should look nice. And then it's as simple again as spritzing with water. Can you see how that beads up? I don't know, can you see in the light how it's beaded up? And then we have the white card and we stamp. Again, I hope this works. I haven't practiced ahead of time, so it usually works. Hold it down, release and lift. Oh, very pale, very pale. We needed to use darker colours, but I'll show you how that turned out. Look at that. You see it, guys? So if I hadn't done that in darker browns and darker blues, that would have been absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I like it how it is anyway. So that's just another product that we can stamp with. So far we've used water and we've used crayons to stamp with. Now we're going to also have a go at stamping with gesso. So I've got my white gesso and I like to just put it straight on my craft sheet, so with my finger, because I can spread it out and I don't want it thick and gluggy. So just a thin coating. Make sure you put your lid back on so it doesn't dry out. Have a piece of paper towel so you can dry all the gesso off your fingers. And I'm using Inky flowers from Rubber Dance for this one. And I'm going to do it in a couple of different ways. So you can see the gesso on the stamp. Now the first one I'm going to do just onto white card. And then I'm going to show you after it's dry what we can do with that, because gesso is a resist. You probably can't see it, but that's okay, you'll see it shortly. Now we're going to go in, this is from my scrap box. Remember last week I used scraps? This week I've gone back into my scrap box and I found this jelly print that I made probably 3 or 4 years ago. Quite like the colours, so I kept it. Again, ink up your stamp with a bit of gesso, like this, and then you can stamp your flowers onto your acrylic paint background. And we might just throw another one over here because it looks nice. Make sure you press it down. And look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? So pretty. And so simple. And I could go in again. And just put some buds here. Just as a bit of filler. I think the trick with this one is to not press too hard. Firm but not hard, because it'll spread the gesso out. So we don't want a squishy mess. Right, there you go. Now, what I've prepared earlier is a container with some soapy water. You must put your stamp into some soapy water and clean it off. I've got a toothbrush here. And I'm just going to clean the gesso off, because once it dries, it's really hard to get off your stamp and it might affect your print further on down the track when you go to use it again. So just clean that off like that. I'm just going to leave it sitting in the water because that won't hurt anything. And at the same time, I'm going to clean the gesso off the craft sheet. So sorry about this. Just going to sit there and watch me clean like that. You can use baby wipes. If it was dry, you could just use a paper towel, but this was still a little bit wet. The trick to stamping with gesso is not to have it too thick. Not too thick, not too thin. So it's something you might want to practice first, just to get an idea. I think what most people do is put it on too thick. And also the other thing is, keep your image a simple image. You don't want to have anything too complicated. All right, so that's gesso. Oh, I'm going to show you. Sorry. We'll finish this one off. I'll make sure it's dry. And flatten it out by heating the back. If it doesn't come off on your fingers, then it's dry. And then I've also got Bundled Sage Distress ink. And I'm just going to go in and blend. Nice circular motions. And I start on the craft sheet and go onto the card and in towards the middle. Just like that. So I just want to give you an idea of how the gesso works as a resist, because it's a really fun technique. And you can go in and do lots of different things, which we might do another day. So and the flower is starting to appear, just like magic. And I won't do anything too fancy, it's just to show you and give you an idea of what it looks like. The other thing is that when you put the distress ink on, sometimes a little bit of colour goes onto the gesso. You just have a damp baby wipe, not a wet one, but just damp, and just clean it up lightly, just so the white pops, and that's what we end up with. All right, so we've got this one and this one. Lovely techniques to use. So that's stamping with gesso. So we've stamped with gesso, we've stamped with crayons, and we've stamped with water. Really simple things to do so far. The next thing we're going to do is, let's do paint. I found this in my scrap box as well. I was just having a play. That's also done with a jelly plate, and it's oxides. And I can tell it's oxides because it's got a really chalky feel to it. And it's nice soft hues. So I thought for this one, it might be nice to do a paint. So paint is pretty much like gesso. I don't know how much to use. Let's just go a bit more, like that. And spread it out so it's thin, just with your finger. We don't want it gluggy. We just want a thin coat. So it's like putting a skin down on your craft sheet, really. Craft sheets are great things. It's a big stamp that I've chosen to show this one with, so I need a big area. This is the Winged Girl from Lost Coast Designs, and she's just stunning. She's got a little bit more detail in it than some of the other stamps I've used. So I'm just going to ink her up. It's pretty much the same as what I did with the gesso. So when you've got enough ink on there, you can go and stamp. It's a big stamp, so you have to make sure that you press down in a lot of different areas. Always have one hand on, one hand off. Not two hands off in case it jumps. And then lift it off and pop it into the water, because remember the paint is like gesso, and if it sets, you won't be able to get the paint off. And look at that Winged Girl. How gorgeous is she? And that's stamping with paint. So we've done paint, water, crayons, gesso, quite a few products already. And none of them are too hard, which is what I like, because, you know, as crafters, we don't want to do anything that's too hard, do we? We want to keep it simple. Everything in crafting is simple. It's just knowing what our choices are. That's the hardest part. Now, the last one that I'm going to show you, I'll show you on the back of this, is alcohol markers. So I've got these alcohol markers, and I've got the 3 monkeys, also from Lost Coast Designs. And being alcohol markers, they dry pretty quick, so you have to work, just colour them in, just random, like that. Blues and browns again. And I don't know where I've coloured it because I can't see it. just got to hope for the best, I guess. And we'll stamp it out and see how it goes. I hope this one works. Alcohol markers dry really fast. So this is one you have to commit to. You can't just take your time like you would with crayons. It's hit and miss. Didn't really work, but we had a go. If I had some, what activates alcohol markers? I think the ibuprofen or the alcohol rub, if I had some in a little spray bottle and just gave it a light mist, that would probably reactivate it. But what I'm going to do while I've got my crayons here, I'm going to see what the monkeys look like done up with crayons. So what did we decide on? We're going to go for darker colours, don't we? Alright. So I've got browns and purples and a grey. So I'm not worried about the alcohol markers that are on here because it's dry. The alcohol markers have dried, so there's going to be no contamination of products. If you were to a grey. If you were to use more water-based products, you'd have to be really careful. I suppose I can show you what a spray looks like as well. A bit of water. I'm just being very careful. I'm just beating it up like that, so it's not dripping. And firm pressure all over the stamp to make sure all the colour comes out. And let's see if it works this time. Oh, not too bad. Not too bad. I probably could have put a bit of purple on his head. That would have looked nice. If I had to use some oranges, that would look nice with the purple as well. So that was alcohol markers, and that was with the crayons. So that's an interesting technique too. I'll clean that one up later. Tone on tone stamping. This was one that I showed you a few weeks ago as well, using the Elements inks, and I used, what colour was it? I'm just looking through. I think it was mulberry. So we'll go with the butterfly because that's here. It's dry. Oops. Bit wet. So clean up the edge of the stamp. The easiest way to clean it up is with a bit of paper towel. Keep forgetting how juicy these ink pads are. I'm used to using Distress inks and you don't have this happen with them. Okay, so the butterflies are, and I like to go into the white areas with my stamping. Lightly, there we go, and up here. And this is straight, not watered down at all, so you're going to get the really strong hit of colour. So there we have some tone on tone. That's with that, with a water-based ink. I think, what was the other thing I wanted to show you? Just quickly, what would be some of the other products that you would have? You might have some sprays. Clean that stamp up because I'll use that stamp again. Gosh, very strong. Love the colours of these Elements inks from Lavinia. Gosh, beautiful, beautiful colours. All right, that's near enough. And dry it. Right, let's go with the spray. And these are the Delusion sprays. This is an old one. I always like to shake these ones. And you can spray it onto your craft sheet, just like that. And we'll grab a bit of white card, ink up the stamp. You don't want it too wet. So sometimes tapping off onto the side just to get rid of some excess is not a bad idea. and you get that watercolory effect, and that's stamping with the sprays. Now I would do it straight onto a craft sheet. I wouldn't spray onto the stamp itself because you would end up with the spray going everywhere, and if the rest of the rubber come in contact with your white card, you're going to end up with splotches all over the place, which is okay if you want splotches all over the place. And that's what it looks like. Okay, coming back up. So how exciting is that? You've probably got all these products sitting around at home, and I'm just wiping up this spray because it's really messy stuff. That's why I left it until last. Stamping with water-based inks. I find with the elements that you get a really nice coverage and a nice stamped image. If I was to use distress ink, it might come out more of a watercolory look and a bit hit and miss. If I was stamping with oxides, I'd get a lovely coverage just like this as well. This one is stamping with paint. How pretty is she? And we'll work that another day. We'll do something else with that. I had a go at stamping with the monkeys. Alcohol markers. It's alcohol. It dries within 10-20 seconds, so it's a really hard one to do. You've got to go super fast. And then I had to go with the crayons, so a little bit better, but I would go in and probably choose different colours in hindsight. This one is stamping with water, so that's a really nice one. And this one is the boys, and I just remember the name of the stamp set. It's Friends 2, and it's from Art Journey, and they look absolutely amazing stamped in crayons. And I think it's because it's got a silhouette area on that stamp. See, on the pants, it's very silhouette. So there's more chance of that colour to come through. This one was gesso, where we've used it as a resist and wiped off any excess paint with a baby wipe. Nothing too damp. And this one is just stamping with gesso. Oh, and I don't know, the sprays. So lots of ideas for you to go out and try. If you've got products, see if you can stamp with them. The idea is to not have it too thick, not have it too watery. If you can thin the water out, thin the product out, then you should be able to stamp with it. This is your friend, a little container of soapy water to put your stamps in, especially when you're using paints. So I'm going to say goodbye, and I'm going to go and clean my stamps. They're soaking in the water, but I need to get the toothbrush onto them. See you next week.